You have laughed thousands of times in your life, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands if you are lucky. You have laughed until your stomach hurt, laughed until you cried, laughed at things that were not even funny just because someone else was laughing, and you could not help yourself. But here is something you have probably never stopped to think about. Why do you laugh? Not why do you find things funny? That is a different question, and it is actually the less interesting one. The real question is, why does your body produce that specific sound? Why does amusement or surprise or joy or relief cause your diaphragm to spasm, your vocal cords to vibrate, and your mouth to open in that particular way? Where did laughter come from? And the answer takes us back much further than you might expect, much further than language, much further than humans. Laughter is old, really old. It is older than language. It is older than modern humans. It is older than our species entirely. We know this because we are not the only animals that laugh. Chimpanzees laugh. Gorillas laugh. Orangutans laugh. Bonobos laugh. All four of the great ape species produce a sound during play that is recognizably similar to human laughter. It is a breathy, panting vocalization that they make when they are wrestling, chasing each other, or being tickled. If you have ever heard a recording of a chimpanzee being tickled, and these recordings exist and are easy to find, you would recognize the sound instantly. It sounds like laughter, because it is laughter, not metaphorically, not approximately. It is the same behavior, produced by the same brain circuits, serving the same function. The common ancestor of humans and the other great apes lived about 14 million years ago. That means laughter, in some form, has existed for at least 14 million years. To put that in perspective, language as we know it has probably only existed for somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 years. Writing has only existed for about 5,000 years. The internet has existed for about 30 years. Laughter predates language by a factor of roughly 50 to 100. It is one of the oldest social vocalizations in the primate lineage. It was here before words, before grammar, before stories, before songs. It is more ancient than anything we would recognize as culture. But there is an important difference between ape laughter and human laughter, and understanding that difference is key to understanding how laughter became what it is today. When a chimpanzee laughs, it makes the sound on both the inhale and the exhale. It is more like heavy, rhythmic panting. If you imagine the sound ha-ha, ha-ha, with each ha happening on alternating breaths in and out, that is close to what chimp laughter sounds like. Human laughter is different. We laugh primarily on the exhale. Ha 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 ha. Each burst of sound comes on an outward breath. This change happened somewhere in the last 6 or 7 million years. After our lineage split from the chimpanzee lineage, but before we became fully modern humans. And it was a crucial change, more important than it might seem, because it freed up laughter from physical activity. When a chimp laughs, it is almost always doing something physical at the same time. Playing, roughhousing, rolling around, being tickled. The panting laughter is tied to the physical exertion. The breathing pattern works with the movement. But human laughter, because it happens on the exhale and is independent of breathing rhythm, can happen during speech, during quiet conversation, while sitting perfectly still, while doing nothing physical at all. This small change in breathing mechanics allowed laughter to evolve from a play signal into a social signal. It went from something that happened during physical fun to something that could happen during talking, thinking, and simply being together. It went from a response to a tool, and that was a game changer for our species. The oldest and most basic trigger for laughter is tickling. Every human culture in the world tickles its children. Every great ape species responds to tickling with laughter. And tickling has some very strange properties that tell us a great deal about what laughter is actually for. First, you cannot tickle yourself. Try it right now if you want. It does not work. Your brain knows that the sensation is self-generated, so it cancels out the tickle response before it reaches the level of consciousness. Your cerebellum, the part of the brain that coordinates movement, predicts the sensation of your own touch and filters it out. This means that tickling requires another being. It is inherently social. It cannot happen alone. Second, tickling produces laughter even when the person being tickled does not find it pleasant. Many people actively dislike being tickled. They squirm, they protest, they try to get away, and yet they laugh. The laughter is not a response to enjoyment. It is a response to the social and physical interaction itself. It is automatic. Researchers believe that tickle laughter is the original, ancestral form of all laughter. It evolved as a social bonding mechanism during play among young primates. When young apes play fight, which they do constantly, tickling and the laughter it produces serve as a signal that the interaction is playful and not aggressive. It is a way of saying, I am not actually trying to hurt you, and I know you are not actually trying to hurt me. This is important because play fighting involves the same physical movements as real fighting. Grabbing, pushing, pinning, chasing. Without a clear, unmistakable signal that this is play and not the real thing. It could easily and quickly escalate into genuine violence. Laughter is that signal. It says, this is safe. This is fun. I trust you. Keep going. From this basic play signal, laughter evolved in humans to serve a much wider and richer range of social functions. And this is where things get really interesting. Because most of what makes people laugh in daily life has nothing to do with jokes or humor or comedy. Studies of natural conversation, where researchers recorded people talking in offices, cafeterias, sidewalks, and living rooms, have shown that people laugh far more often during ordinary social interaction than during anything that could be called comedy. The vast majority of laughter in everyday life follows completely ordinary, unremarkable statements. Someone says something like, well, I should probably head out, and the other person laughs. Someone says it took me forever to find parking, and everyone laughs. Someone says, I completely forgot it was Wednesday, and the table laughs. These statements are not funny by any definition. There is no joke structure, no setup, no punchline, no surprise, no wit. But the laughter serves a clear purpose. It signals agreement, warmth, friendliness, and social cohesion. It says, I am with you. I like you. I am comfortable here. We are part of the same group. Robert Praveen, a neuroscientist who spent decades studying laughter in natural settings, recorded and analyzed thousands of instances of real-world laughter and found that less than 20% of it was in response to anything that could reasonably be classified as humorous. The remaining 80% or more was purely social. It was lubricant for conversation. It was a way of managing relationships, signaling agreement, easing awkward moments, softening criticisms, and building connections between people. This matches perfectly with what we see in other social primate species. Laughter is not primarily about comedy. It never has been. It is about connection. Here is another strange property of laughter. It is extraordinarily contagious. Hearing someone else laugh makes you far more likely to laugh yourself. even if you have absolutely no idea what they are laughing about. You have experienced this. Someone across a room starts laughing hard and you start smiling, maybe laughing too, and you do not even know the joke. This is not just a cultural habit or a conscious choice to join in. It is new. Brain imaging studies have shown that hearing laughter activates the premotor cortical regions of the brain, which are the areas responsible for preparing the facial muscles and respiratory muscles for action. Your brain hears laughter and immediately, automatically, without consulting you, starts preparing your body to laugh back. This happens in milliseconds, well below the threshold of conscious decision. You do not choose to laugh when someone else laughs. Your brain does it for you. This contagiousness is one of the reasons laughter is such a powerful social tool and why it has persisted for millions of years. It spreads through groups like a wave, synchronizing the emotional state of everyone present. When a group of people are all laughing together, their breathing patterns synchronize. Their facial expressions mirror each other, their heart rates align briefly, and their brains enter a similar neurochemical state. This is what researchers call emotional contagion, and laughter is one of the most potent and reliable triggers for it in our entire behavioral repertoire. It creates a shared emotional experience, and shared emotional experiences are the raw material from which social bonds are built. Tribes that laughed together, trusted together. Groups that could synchronize their emotions could coordinate their actions, and groups that coordinated well survived. Laughter also has measurable, physical effects on the body that go beyond social signaling. When you laugh hard, your diaphragm contracts rapidly and repeatedly, your heart rate increases briefly, your blood pressure spikes for a moment, and then both your heart rate and blood pressure drop to below their resting levels. Your muscles tense during the laughter and then relax deeply afterward. Your brain releases endorphins, the same chemicals released during vigorous exercise, eating pleasurable food, and physical affection. A good, hard laugh genuinely makes your body feel better, and this is not a placebo effect or a folk belief. The endorphin release is real, measurable with blood tests, and significant. One study found that groups of people who laughed together for just 15 minutes had significantly higher pain thresholds immediately afterward compared to control groups who had not laughed. The researchers tested this by putting ice on participants' arms and measuring how long they could tolerate it. The laughers lasted longer. This suggests that the endorphin release from social laughter may have served as a natural painkiller and stress reducer in our evolutionary past, helping groups recover from the physical demands of daily survival. But there is also a dark side to laughter that is just as old and just as deeply wired into us as the bonding side. Laughter can be used to exclude, to humiliate, to mock, and to enforce social hierarchies. Being laughed at, as opposed to being laughed with, is one of the most painful social experiences a human being can have. Children learn this very early, often before they can articulate it. The fear of being laughed at is one of the most common and most intense social fears in every culture that has ever been studied. And this is not oversensitivity. It is not weakness. It reflects a real social dynamic. In group settings, laughter directed at someone is a form of social punishment. It signals that the person has violated a norm, that they are outside the group, that the group is closing ranks and they are not included. It is the same basic mechanism as bonding laughter, shared emotional synchronization, but aimed outward as a weapon instead of inward as glue. This dual nature of laughter, both inclusive and exclusive, both bonding and punishing, loving and cruel, tells us something important about its evolutionary roots. It evolved in a context where group membership was not optional. It was literally a matter of life and death. Being inside the group meant access to food, shelter, protection, mates, and help raising children. Being outside the group meant isolation, vulnerability to predators, starvation, and almost certain death. Laughter that pulled people together and laughter that pushed people out were two sides of the same survival mechanism. Two uses of the same ancient tool. Different cultures around the world have developed very different norms and customs around laughter, which shows just how flexible and adaptable this ancient tool really is. In some East Asian cultures, laughter is used to express a much wider range of emotions than it typically is in Western cultures. It can signal nervousness, confusion, embarrassment, or social discomfort, none of which involve actual amusement. A person might laugh softly when receiving bad news, not because they find it funny, but because the laughter serves as a social buffer. It softens the emotional intensity of the moment and signals to the other person that the listener is trying to maintain composure and preserve social harmony. This is sometimes deeply misunderstood by people from cultures where laughter is more tightly linked to humor. But it is a perfectly valid and sophisticated use of the same basic tool. In many indigenous cultures around the world, laughter plays a central and respected role in social regulation. Among several First Nations groups in North America, public teasing accompanied by group laughter is a traditional and time-honored way of correcting antisocial behavior without direct confrontation or punishment. If someone in the community is being selfish, boastful, or disrespectful, the group will tease them gently in a public setting, and the shared laughter serves as a correction that preserves the person's dignity and place in the group, while still making the message absolutely clear. This is not bullying. It is highly skilled social technology that requires everyone present to understand the nuanced difference between laughter that attacks and laughter that teaches. And it works. It has worked for thousands of years. The evolution of humor is probably the most recent chapter in the long story of laughter. And it is the chapter most people think of first when they think about why we laugh. But humor, in the sense of telling jokes, finding things funny, and appreciating irony and wit, is really just one application of a tool that is vastly older than comedy. The basic structure of humor involves a setup that creates an expectation in the listener's mind, and then a punchline or twist that violates that. Expectation in a way that is surprising but not threatening. Your brain made a prediction about where things were going. The prediction turned out to be wrong, but the wrongness is not dangerous. It is safe to let your guard down, and so you laugh. This is essentially the same pattern as the original play signal from 14 million years ago. Something happened that looked like it could be a threat, but turned out not to be, and the laughter says, "False alarm. We are safe. Stand down." Babies start laughing at about 3 to 4 months old, long before they understand a single word of any language. What makes them laugh is peekaboo, unexpected faces, gentle bouncing, and surprise. The pattern is always the same. Something unexpected happens. The baby's brain processes that it is not a threat, and laughter follows. This is identical to the pattern that made our ape ancestors laugh 14 million years ago during play wrestling. And it is identical to the pattern that makes you laugh today when a comedian hits you with a punchline you did not see coming. The surface content has changed beyond recognition. The underlying mechanism has not changed at all. There is one more thing about laughter that is worth sitting with for a moment. It is almost impossible to laugh and be genuinely afraid at the same time. Laughter deactivates the fear response. It tells your sympathetic nervous system that whatever just happened, you are okay. This is probably why laughter is such a common and universal response to moments of relief. You nearly tripped and fell down the stairs, but caught yourself at the last second. You laugh. The car in front of you braked suddenly and you stopped with inches to spare. You laugh. Someone leaped out from behind a door and scared you, and it was just your friend being stupid. You laugh. You got the test results back and everything is fine. You laugh. In every one of these cases, the laughter is your body processing the gap between what could have happened and what actually happened, and telling every alarm system in your body to stand down. The danger was not real. You survived. You are safe. Laughter, in the end, is one of the oldest things about us. It was here before we could speak, before we could think in words, before we had any concept of humor or comedy or wit or satire. It was here before we were us. It started as a simple sound that young apes made while tumbling around with each other. A breathy, panting noise that meant nothing more than "This is not real. This is safe. I trust you. Keep playing." And over 14 million years, through countless species and countless generations, it grew into something immeasurably more complex and more powerful. It became a way of building alliances, reinforcing bonds, managing conflict, expressing relief, diffusing tension, teaching lessons, punishing betrayal, and navigating the endless, exhausting, beautiful complexity of living in groups of other thinking, feeling, unpredictable minds. Every single time you laugh, you are using a tool that your body inherited from ancestors who lived in trees and communicated entirely without words. That breathy, convulsive, involuntary, uncontrollable sound connects you, directly and physically, to every human being who has ever lived, and to cousins in the animal kingdom who share the same ancient, unshakable need to play and to belong. And honestly, that is something worth laughing about.